First, ISIS, the terrorism threat, the unprecedented terrorism threat in this country, and the threat at home from radicalised young men. Today, there are very serious claims that we're effectively bungling our fight against terrorism at some levels. I think it's time to rethink how we're approaching it, come up with ideas, new approaches. Tony Abbott's doing it federally with savage new laws suggested for removing citizenship and without a court. And in Victoria, the state government is considering intervention orders against radicalised young men to sort of step in before they do anything, step in and try to force them to be de-radicalised. All this against a background of terror, talk of chemical weapons, dirty bombs with radioactivity. It's scary stuff. Now, today there are claims the Victoria Police getting it wrong. An open letter has been sent to all Victorians, being released by 5 former police, very, very senior police. Signatories include former Chief Commissioner Kel Glare, former Deputy Commissioner and Queensland Commissioner Noel Newnham, former Deputy Commissioner in Victoria Neil O'Loughlin, and several others. Their point, and look, I'll quote, policing in Victoria is moving back to the dark ages. Still quoting. This is a win for terrorists. It sends the message Victorian Police fears these barbarians. Still quoting, extremism is being allowed to compromise police operations. Unquote. In the studio with me, one of the signatories, the former Chief Commissioner, Kel Glare. Good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Dramatic action, a letter like this. Why? Why release it?
We're concerned about the way VicPol has been going. We're concerned that the message recently that police must work in pairs, even in one-man stations, I've got to join with someone else, is sending the wrong message. It's showing that the VicPol fears these terrorists and barbarians, and that ought not to be the message. The Prime Minister and many other people have said that we need to get on with our lives and not allow terrorism to have a win, and we see this as a win for terrorists. It is sending a message that VicPol is frightened of these absolutely minuscule number of barbarians.
A win for terrorists? What, a psychological boost, or what sort of
win?
Yeah,
they'd be absolutely thrilled to think that they've forced a situation where Victoria Police are now publicly saying that they need to work in pairs. You know, that's not the message we ought to be sending. Policing's inherently dangerous. We all know that. We've all been through that. Between the signatories of this letter, we've got something like 180 years of policing experience. We understand that there are dangers, but they're dangers that need to be faced. And we ought not to be reacting in this way to terrorist threats. There
is a very real threat, we're told, though, to police as targets, police in uniforms as targets.
Absolutely, no question about that. But what's so very different? We've had the Russell Street bombing many years ago and other attacks on police in the past. These things happen. Wall Street, these things happen from time to time. They're unfortunate, they're tragic, but we ought not to change the whole philosophy of policing for one or two incidents.
So what specifically concerns you? Is it having to work in pairs, not wearing the uniforms, but not taking cars home, that sort of thing?
It's the message, the basic underlying message that terrorists are in fact causing fear within the community and within the Victoria Police. And Victoria Police should be moving away from connecting with the public. They've withdrawn their support for things like Blue Light, New Start and a number of other programs. The Police in Schools program was abolished. That ought to be reintroduced immediately. It was extremely effective. It gets to the hearts and minds of kids when they're very young and shapes their future. And I just cannot believe that was ever abolished. We need to get police back into schools immediately.
Okay, so is the problem you see, is it disengagement?
Yes, it is. We're building larger police stations and centralising police, and I understand the operational imperatives of that, but in fact now police are just simply responding to calls rather than being out with the community. And the more contact police have with the community, the more likely they are to effectively police. The principles laid down by Sir Robert Peel many, many, many years ago are equally applicable today as they were when they were first written. The police of the community of the police. They've got to be working together.
So what are we doing? What are they doing wrong? There's the working in pairs. You think that's wrong?
Well, I think it's impractical. Certainly it's been acknowledged to a degree by Victoria Police now because they've altered their edict about one-man stations. I mean, people on a one-person stations. People on those stations go back to their houses. Everyone knows where they live in these places where there is only one member of the police force. What's the point? They have to look after themselves. They're armed. They have that opportunity to look after themselves. And yes, there's a certain risk involved, but it's a risk that has to be accepted.